Greetings. This is a support video on servant draft detail, and these little side videos very much more informal than the main presentation. It's just you and I talking, and I'll tell you, as you and I talk, the servant draft really has me excited. I can't wait to hear back from all of you. I think there's just tremendous strategic depth added, almost a game within a game. I would even say call it a pre-game within a game, because it's the very first part of setup. And I think when you have experienced players sitting down together, rather than just getting your stuff and waiting to start the game and see what's in the builder's market, I think there's going to be a lot of jockeying and very critical strategic decisions made during the servant draft. A couple of things. When I did the setup, we didn't have our starting servants present here. There's no reason you can't have those there. I think visually it quite helps. You have to understand the reason that I did it that way was about rule book efficiency. Just by putting that draft at the beginning, it allowed me then to just go ahead on step 2 and pass off the setup to the original obsession instructions and just let that unfold. You know, I have 60 pages of rules / glossary in the 4 titles that I put out with this last campaign. And yet I still run into people saying, you didn't cover this, you didn't cover that. So forgive me for the fact that I did organized it that way in order to try to keep the pages at 60. But no reason, there's no advantage conferred. You know in your mind what you get for starting servants. So this will help us visually as we review some of the different player boards and how to leverage those advantages. Secondly, you need to be very familiar with all these servants. There's a separate video that will get into the abilities of each servant if you're new to this game. If you know the original game, you're going to be very familiar with these servants here. You'll need to also get acquainted with these to best use the draft. So I think there's 3 strategic buckets that the servant draft fits into. One is combos within servants, so that you can build some efficiencies. Secondly is trying to exploit your family advantage. I have Cavendish here who starts with an elevated reputation. The question might be, what do I do in the servant draft to extend that lead? Then there is to try to discount the relative advantage of another player. Now I can't get into that here because I would have to set up all these different combos of family boards to see what the relative advantages and disadvantages. But let me give you an example. The cook is an extremely powerful servant early in the game. And Family Howard starts with a cook. Now, what does a cook allow you to do? Well, let's say I'm got a reputation of 1 there. The cook would allow me to invite a prestige guest with a reputation of level 3. That's very powerful early. The cook somewhat diminishes toward the end of the game. But if I'm concerned about that advantage, I could go ahead and grab the cook in the draft to counteract that. Now, Howard will still get another servant from up here in the draft, but that's an idea of trying to mitigate the advantage of another player. I'm not really going to talk about that discounting of other people's family advantages. I'm going to talk more about how to leverage your own family advantage. So what would I do if I had Cavendish and I really wanted to accentuate the reputation play? Well, the cook actually steps to the forefront as well. Mrs. Puggins, because of her delicious food, marvelous skill in the kitchen, gives you 1 reputation every time you use her. So if you have a cook, she's like a half a monument. Over the course of the game, she's going to go ahead and potentially add, let's say, 6, 5 points of reputation, a whole level, and you're starting almost a level up. That's a good way to exploit that. You could also look at the useful man, because the useful man has all sorts of abilities. And one of them, if I use an example here, allows you to break a rule. The rule you can break with the useful man, normally this has to be equal or greater to the prestige rating on the tile for me to host that activity. Let's say I'm not there yet. The useful man has the ability, by his contribution to getting that space ready, to discount temporarily that prestige rating 1 level. So that would be a 3. It allows you to go ahead and use it even though your family reputation is 3. So think about it. If you've already jumped out ahead because of your family advantage, you might be able to, early in Season 2, be getting into some very big tiles because of the combo of the useful man with a family with an elevated reputation. So that's maybe how I would approach drafting with family Cavendish. With family Wessex, what do we have? Well, the family advantage, I should have flipped it over on the organizer side, but you can't actually see it, so I'm going to hold them here. The family advantage is that they start with a second level tile. Look at the service requirements on those second level tiles, and it'll reveal to you an area where you want to be strong in your domestic staff. So a footman would be attractive. If you take the breakfast room, well, that always stresses the housekeeper, who is a unique servant you can't double up on. But the head housemaid, there is a service tile out there, a housekeeper's room, that allows her to stand in for the housekeeper. So those are the considerations if your family is Wessex. So what if your family York? Well, family York begins with that extra footman, so that certainly rules that footman out. Now, whenever I get York, I got my eyes on the lookout for that brushing room. Because if I get that brushing room, not only do I have real diversity because of the double footman, but then I've also got sort of my male service requirement taken care of. So that would probably make me disinclined to go in this direction. This might be a real strong play for York, because if I draft here, for those of you who've played this game, boy, you know about how ladies' maids being short is just a critical situation, particularly if you're getting the females early in your gentry deck. So that would be a strong play for York. So Howard's family advantage is that cook. What a wonderful family advantage, so powerful early in the game. And there's really only one combo you want to look at. That's the head housemaid. And why is that? So I'm going to pop out here, because we begin the game, everybody, with a start tile in the estate category, the main gazebo, that allows a prestige invite. So how does the cook work? When the cook is placed on an activity, so let's go ahead and set a typical first level reputation. And what does the cook allow us to do? Well, if our reputation was 1, it would allow us to invite a prestige guest with a prestige rating of 3. And look here, everybody begins with 1 prestige guest invite. But that's a blind draw from the prestige deck on the supply board. What the head housekeeper does, the head housekeeper allows you, when this is played, we'll put the cook down here to show how that's played, allows you to screen this. So instead of just getting the first guest, which in this case would be a prestige rating of 5, we would be able to look at 2, keep 1, so we can keep Crispin Viscount Chetwynd. And look at him. He brings along a prestige guest invite, which is a great find in that first season. So the combo of the cook and the head housemaid allow you to make sure that you can use the cook's ability to its fullest early in the game. Ponsonby's advantage is money. And if you're talking money, you are talking the hall boy and the useful man. The useful man adds 200 pounds when he is used to every village fair. And the hall boy, whenever they're placed on a guest such as this, 300 pounds, increases that favor by 100 pounds. That's one way to greatly leverage the financial advantage of Ponsonby early. I don't really have anything regarding Asquith. Asquith has a family advantage of an extra family member who does not require service. But I want to make a larger point, is that I've been talking about how to extend the family advantage, to basically leverage it for even a greater family advantage. But there's a very good strategy, and I think I touched upon it with York, to round out the domestic staff. Whatever strategy you pursue, I think we're going to find out over the next several months just how interesting that servant draft is at the beginning. Look at these servants. Aren't they great? To me, it's the highlight of obsession. Draft well.